Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another chapter in our series of webinars that Inorganic Ventures produces and distributes and presents throughout the year. We're very excited about presenting the new discrete analyzer reagents. And you'll notice throughout the presentation, we've got a bit of a cheeky version of this, taking after the 007 and the Mission Impossible theme that we're very excited about. Let me go ahead and start by talking a little bit about our value proposition. And when we make products like this, what is it that we're doing? We like to talk about us being chemists working for chemists. We want to ensure the integrity of analytical testing worldwide. So as you're looking at this from any points in the world, you're able to understand and see that we really want to come alongside chemists and provide them with products which are germane to what they're doing and that they are additive to the value of what they're trying to accomplish. From our products and services to these webinars, our educational commitment, you're not going to find a more dedicated manufacturer of standards in the world. I'm going to have with me Mike Booth, our director of technical director at Inorganic Ventures. He is a chemist with expertise in quality control and instrumentation. His experience covers areas including ICP OES and ICP-MS, as well as ion chromatography and various titration techniques. So we'll jump into this webinar now. And as I said, we're playing off the 007 and the Mission Impossible. So this mission, if you choose to accept it, which we certainly hope that you do, we'll give you the briefing that we're going to give you. We're going to talk a little bit about Inorganic Ventures. Some of you know us, some of you do not, and we'll briefly touch on that. Then Mike will dive in and start talking about what are discrete analyzers, some tips and tricks to the instruments, and talking about putting time back on your side. Time is money, and we want to make sure that we are putting that back on your side and giving you value there. We'll continue by giving you some backup, some supporting data that helps in this presentation. And then we'll introduce these new reagents and what they are, and then we'll certainly have room for questions. As a bit of housekeeping, on Zoom, you'll on the webinar, you'll see a place to ask questions. We're going to save those until the end, and then we'll try to answer all of them as many as possible. So as we get started, what does Inorganic Ventures do? Well, as many of you know, we are a manufacturer of certified reference materials, commonly referred to in the industry as standards or chemical standards or calibration standards. We play mainly in the elemental standards, high purity single element or custom blends. Of course, we make pH standards, conductivity standards, titrants, and now reagents. So with this, I'm going to hand it over to Mike. Mike, go ahead and share with us, the presentation, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, we are going to start off this morning talking about discrete analyzers, and more specifically, what is a discrete analyzer, just in case you're really new to this this area of analytical instrumentation. So we're going to kick off with just a brief overview of what is a discrete analyzer. And the discrete part of the discrete analyzer means that it does one sample at a time for one analyte at a time. So on this slide, you'll see pictures of different types of instruments. You'll notice that the size will vary, so don't let that one sample at a time, one analyte at a time, make you think that these instruments have slow throughput, because that is the opposite of the truth. You can have tremendous sample throughput with these instruments in combination with the automation that these instrument manufacturers are putting in place. They actually are very fast once they get up to speed and they start running through samples. And they're very useful for testing all sorts of different analytes. So a little bit of background on how do they actually work. So now that you've seen some pictures, or you might have one in your lab, how does a discrete analyzer work? It's basically they rely on the classical wet chemistry techniques that have been around for a long time. And more specifically, you're looking for some sort of color change. So you'll have your sample, either your calibration standard or your unknown, and to that sample, the discrete analyzer is going to take an aliquot and then add in a reagent or a number of reagents. And then it's going to hold that mixture for the proper time and at the correct temperature to create a new color change. So some sort of chemical reaction will happen, and you should get a new color change, which is then analyzed for absorbance. And that's how you construct calibration curves for these instruments and how you analyze samples. So this slide is a little bit of a close-up. Even though they all look different, if you stand far back, as the previous slide sort of shown, when you really get inside one of these instruments, they all kind of operate in the same way. This is a close-up picture of the instrument that we have in our lab that we utilize. And basically what you will have is you have some sort of liquid handling part, which in this slide is I've labeled that as a sample and reagent pickup and dispenser. So if we start right there and then rotate counterclockwise, we'll go through all the different parts of the instrument. So you'll have some sort of liquid handling device that will carry your samples and reagents. You'll also have a space for the reagents to be held themselves. So those are usually in larger containers on the discrete analyzers. Usually, like I think between 20 and 50 milliliters is pretty normal. And then along the instrument, you also have some sort of carousel where all of your samples will be held. So, pretty straightforward. You'll pour your samples into sample cups, and that'll set on the instrument. But really, where all the chemistry happens are in the reaction wells. And this will look slightly different for each model of instrument, but there'll usually be many more of these reaction wells than there are samples or reagents, and they're pretty small. So that's where the actual samples dispensed into, the reagents are dispensed into, and that's where that chemical reaction takes place. And then depending on the instrument, again, the sample is going to be analyzed for absorbance. So on our instrument, there is another liquid handling device that'll come in and pick up the solution out of the reaction wells to run that for an absorbance check. And as I mentioned before, the reagents are getting added to your sample. That could be your unknown samples, or it could be your calibration standards. As Michael mentioned, we provide certified reference materials, and we have found that, a lot of our certified reference materials work great for these, and you need a calibration standard in place to really analyze your unknown. So this is an example of a calibration curve for chloride generated from one of our ion chromatography standards. So you'll need to run this, of course, first, so that so you have something to judge your absorbances against for your unknown samples. All right, so now we've sort of gone over and done a brief review of what the instrument is and how it works. Now we're going to dive into a little bit more tips and tricks for the instruments. All right, so the very first tip and trick is essentially you want to make sure, I'm sure that most of you have some sort of ISO 17025 accreditation, either through UCAS or through another party. You want to make sure that you're really following all of the recommendations according to that 17025 accreditation. So I know with 17025, you need to make sure that the operators are properly trained, and that's notated in some sort of training matrix. And you want to make sure that your instruments are up to maintenance as well, and you're keeping all those maintenance records up to date. So really the first tip and trick is really to keep really detailed records for maintenance and training, because that's really going to help you, especially when it comes audit time. All right, the next one is about proper preparation. So really, you want to start preparing the sample for analysis as early as you can. And this even includes the night before. So I know in our lab, the very last thing that we'll do at the end of the day is try to refill all of our bottles of, our diluents. Could be, 5% nitric or 5% HCl, water bottles, all that sort of thing. You want to make sure that you're filling those up the night before and letting them just sort of equilibrate overnight. The same thing is true for the reagents themselves. The reagents, you want to make sure that they're up to the proper temperature before they are used for analysis. So if you can, get those set up the night prior. Some of the reagents that are best kept cold during the analysis. I've even heard of users pulling out the reagent tray that holds in the instrument that holds all of their reagent bottles and just placing that whole thing in the fridge overnight. So you just want to make sure that everything has time to equilibrate at the proper temperature. And the last thing before you start your analysis, and this doesn't have to be done the night before, but it definitely be done before you hit, go on your instrument, is you want to make sure you double check any instrument tubing. I know that really can be a big source of errors, and it's a little frustrating because you won't find it until you start getting samples back, start getting your calibration curves run, and things just don't look right. Then you've got to stop, redo everything. So you just want to make sure you double check that tubing right before you press, start your analysis. All right, and really the nemesis of a lot of labs is really cross-contamination or contamination of any sort. So what you want to make sure of is the very first point you want to check is your water system. Make sure it's functioning correctly. So if you have a deionizer or reverse osmosis water system, if you're starting to see contamination, that's the first place I would check. You could be seeing nitrates, you could be seeing ammonia. There are various things that could be coming into your water system. The second place is you just want to make sure you're avoiding any cross-contamination. So you want to make sure that all of your vessels, even if you're mixing things up in-house, if you're mixing calibration standards, all that stuff is properly labeled. And then also you want to be careful of contamination from the air. I know a lot of our production here at Inorganic Ventures, we use a lot of nitric acid and hydrochloric acid. So we're always mindful of contamination just from the fumes being in the air. That's something that you want to keep in mind as well. And last thing I want to touch on is be careful of cross-contamination from the reagents themselves for your samples. So example would be the chloride reagent, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. The chloride reagent for discrete analyzer has mercury as part of the mixture. So if you're also trying to test for mercury in your lab, you just want to make sure that you're doing that preparation in a clean environment. You're getting everything cleaned up between, prepping anything that has mercury and then prepping anything that needs to be tested for mercury. And then, sorry about that, last thing, this would truly be the last thing on this slide, is if you are reusing containers, this could be anything from volumetric flasks to the little reagent wells themselves. If you are reusing those, make sure you wash them really well and let them fully dry before you use them again. And before you refill them, just do a quick visual inspection. Just see if you have any dried residue left over. That could point that they weren't really cleaned out very well. You may want to clean those again. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about if you are making reagents and calibration standards yourself in your lab, you want to make sure that you're complying with your written procedures and that you're keeping all the proper records with that as well. So if you are making up reagents in your lab or standards, you want to make sure that everything is clearly labeled, that has the expiration date that you've assigned, that you know what they're made from, and you know who made it in your lab. So not just who you got them from, but who's the person in your lab that actually made those up as well. All right, now we're going to talk about some sort of method specific tips and tricks for the discrete analyzer instrumentation. So we mentioned chloride before. The chloride reagent will need to be filtered before it's used. So that's something that's done in the process, but also if you have some older chloride reagent and you see some dark specks in it, before you use that, you really want to make sure that you filter that through. The sulfate method is actually pretty interesting because unlike the others that we sort of talked about where there's a color change, the sulfate method relies on a turbidity change. So sometimes the ingredient in that reagent that causes that turbidity is usually some sort of gelatin. Sometimes you may want to sonicate that reagent before use, but also keep in mind that if you are making that up and you are purchasing different gelatins, they may be advertised the same with the same cast number, but that doesn't mean that from lot to lot they are going to be the same. So that's something that we've verified in our lab, that even if you order the exact same thing, same cast number, they can perform very differently. So if you get a new lot of gelatin in, for the sulfate method, make sure that you verify that it's going to perform the same way as your previous material. Next up is just properly matching the matrix for your samples and standards. This is important for all analytical techniques, but discrete analyzers are very pH sensitive, so that usually that chemical reaction that happens is usually extremely sensitive to pH. So you want to make sure that if you have standards and samples that you're treating them both the same. So if you do some sort of pH fixing for your samples, you want to make sure that you do that same process for your standards, just to make sure that the pH is going to be the same. So when they run through and those chemical reactions happen in those discrete analyzer reaction wells, that everything is performing in a similar fashion. And lastly, you want to monitor the background absorbances. So you always want to make sure to run a blank and then see how far off that blank absorbance value is to your lowest calibration standard. For some of the methods that we run, there's not much room between phosphate and sulfate, for example. So if you have a high background, that can really throw off the calibration curve and give you a poor correlation coefficient. And that might be a good place to start looking for contamination. If you start to see that blank absorbance reading really creep up closer and closer to your lower calibration standard, that's when you should probably start looking at, do you have contamination somewhere in your process? All right. So we've gone through some tips and tricks. At Inorganic Ventures, we have sort of been working on discrete analyzer reagents for quite some time, and we want to sort of go over some of the benefits of these products with you now. So when we started this project off, the biggest thing that we knew we could offer would be time savings to the end user. So if you guys are familiar with making up discrete analyzer reagents, you know how time consuming that process can be. But we also didn't want to stop there. We wanted to provide some other benefits. So lot-to-lot consistency, stability studies, and then detailed documentation. And we're going to go over all these things, but we really want to start off with the time savings because that really is the biggest benefit that you'll see immediately. So this slide demonstrates the process of making the chloride reagent. So if you haven't made the chloride reagent, this is the process for it. If you have, you're probably pretty familiar with this information. But essentially, if you were to make the chloride reagent, you would need to take some ferric nitrate, weigh that out, transfer it to a flask, dilute it, and mix it. Do the same thing with a solution of mercuric thiocyanate. So again, that's where that possible mercury contamination could come from if you're trying to test for mercury in another process. So you're going to have two solutions, and then you're going to combine them together to make the final reagent. And again, through that whole process, all these 7 steps, and then, after that, you have to filter it as well. But through all of that steps, you need to mark down, the weight of the materials that you're weighing out, the volumes you've diluted them to ensure that you've properly mixed them well together. All of those things need to be recorded, so you have that for any record keeping and just sort of help you troubleshoot any issues that might come up. So this process can be quite time consuming. And then after all of that, then you have to get everything cleaned up as well. So again, this process is time consuming, and the method themselves, we're going to talk a little bit more about stability in the next slide. Perfect. This is great. So this slide sort of demonstrates the process of do-it-yourself reagents versus ready-to-use reagents. So the first table, there's a lot of information here, and the slides will be available after the presentation. Just want to throw that out now. But this blue table sort of represents all the material that you would need to create these reagents in-house, an estimate of the time it would take, from getting everything made, getting everything recorded, bottled out and cleaned up. And then the projected stability from the methods that sort of serve as a source of the chemistry for these. So, for example, the color reagent for the phosphate method, according to ISO method 15923-1, it lists the projected stability of about 2 months for that. So that's sort of an issue that we knew would be a big challenge for us, is stability. If you compare the blue table to the yellow table, which represents our ready-to-use discrete reagents, they come ready to go. So there is no need to make anything up. You basically just open the bottle, and these will not be launched onto the market until they've demonstrated at least 6 months of stability. And that guaranteed stability time is only going to increase as we progress our stability testing. All right. So talking about that stability testing really leads into our supporting data. So we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the additional information that the discrete reagents can provide to your lab. As Michael mentioned at the very beginning, Inorganic Ventures is a supplier of certified reference materials. As part of that, we need to be accredited to ISO 9001, ISO 17025, and most importantly for stability, that includes ISO 17034. As part of that 17034 accreditation, they require us to maintain a very detailed stability program so that we know when we make a certified reference material, it's good when we make it, and it's going to be good at the end of its expiration date, which in our case is usually 5 years for a CRM product. So we have a very detailed stability program in place, which has really helped us with this project because we can just add these samples into our already established stability program and really construct a good stability study for these reagents that, to my knowledge, has not been replicated and distributed, the information distributed, widely. All right, so I'm going to go into a little bit more information about how the stability studies are designed. You may, if you're familiar with Inorganic Ventures, you may know that most of our products come shipped in a transpiration control technology bag. That's really for our CRMs to protect from transpiration. And if you want to learn more about that, feel free to reach out to us or visit our website. But essentially, and as a guard for that, for transpiration, also protects from light. So we went ahead and designed the stability study for discrete analyzer reagents. We went ahead and just took light out of the picture because we knew all of these products would be packaged in the bag anyway. So all of our reagents are protected from light, but we are storing them at different temperatures. So this is important information that we will pass along as these stability studies conclude, sort of what the proper temperature for these reagents, how they should be stored. It's all going to be recommended on the C of A. So as we get to that, we'll go into that a little bit more. But also for the stability study, we're not looking at just if we make these reagents, does it give us a good calibration curve in 3 months? We're looking at that, of course, but we're also looking at the absorbances. Because if the calibration curve may look good, but if you dig into the data a little bit more, you might see that your absorbances are lowering over time. And over time, that could give you poorer and poorer detection limits. So we're tracking the raw data for this as well. And we're constructing a pretty good, I think, actually a really good technique for assessing the long-term stability of these reagents based on the absorbance change over time. So I think we're in really good shape on that. And then, of course, we also have transport studies. So this is part of our 17034 accreditation. It's something to say it's good if you hold it at the proper temperature and a good location forever, but what happens if it has to ship out to the customer and it has to go through extreme heat or extreme cold conditions? So that's part of the stability study as well, just making sure that you won't see any changes if in transport your reagents are exposed to extreme heat or extreme cold. All right, so along with the stability, we want to make sure that the lots are consistent from lot to lot. We have at Inorganic Ventures, we have a lot of really good process controls in place. So our materials are validated when they come in to make sure that they're of good quality. And also our manufacturing processes are locked in extremely well, extremely tight. So you don't really have to worry about a lot being inconsistent from lot to lot. For the reagents, we also wanted to make sure that you see consistency and the performance within the lot itself. So this calibration curve data is actually over 5 months. So you'll see the orange and blue dots on the screen. Those are ran 5 months apart, about 5 months apart. And you could see in that table the differences in the absorbance that you're seeing. So we want to make sure that we're seeing, really good consistency within that lot itself and from lot to lot. So you can see in this example that they're really laying right on top of each other, showing a really good consistency. All right, and lastly, but I think one of the more important traits for us is our really detailed product documentation. So this is the most detailed product documentation that we have seen for these types of products. And what you're going to get with the product documentation is you're going to get notes on the exact reagent composition. So you will know exactly what are in these reagents and if that's going to be good for your method that you have established. We're also going to list the source of the method chemistry. So usually some sort of EPA or ISO method. That'll be listed in there as well. And you're going to get example data from your lot. So you will get a calibration curve and the data on the raw absorbances we observed for that actual lot of material. Also, along with that, you're going to get storage and handling recommendations. And this is all going to get updated as our stability program progresses for these. And these storage and handling recommendations will get updated as we see, you know, does this reagent need to be stored in the fridge? Can it be stored at room temperature? All that information can be found on this detailed C of A, which again, you will not find anything like this for reagents, at least not that we've come across. All right. So now it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you guys to the first wave of the discrete analyzer reagents. And here they are. So we are starting off with launching reagents for 3 testing methods, chloride, sulfate, and phosphate. And we also have, so all of those part numbers are listed on the left-hand side of this slide, along with their list prices. And if you have any questions about how to order those, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll direct you to the proper channels to make sure that you can get these. And on the right-hand side of the slide are the part numbers for the calibration standards that I mentioned before. So we've found that a lot of our ion chromatography standards work great as standards for discrete analyzers as well. So here is our first wave of products for this brand new product line in 2023. So we're very excited about this. And we're going to continue to release more methods as the year goes on. So like I said, stay tuned because we have a lot of good information coming this year. This is our 2023 roadmap. So as you can see, chloride, sulfate, and phosphate have hit their 6-month mark and they are up and available for sale. Ammonia just recently hit its 6-month mark as well. So we are working on putting those through the process. And you'll see ammonia products hit our website and everything very shortly. So that was one that's highly requested for that method. But we're also working on others. So hardness, nitrate, nitrite, through various methods of cadmium reduction or hydrazine reduction. We have silica in the pipeline. We're going to be working on alkalinity, cyanide, fluoride, chromium, and much, much more all throughout 2023. So if you have any methods that you do not see on this roadmap or not listed sort of in the description below that table, please reach out to us and let us know, and we can add it to the list of things for us to sort of review and put in process. But we are very excited for this project for 2023. And we hope that we will get some of you to try these wonderful reagents out in your lab. And I think that you'll be very, very happy with them. So speaking more onto that, I am going to pause for just a second. If anyone wants to grab a picture of the QR code that's on screen, we are offering free 30 ml samples of the reagents. So you can have enough to get into your lab to try it out and really have a good comparison against, having them ready to go versus if you're making it up yourselves. So we are offering free samples. If you scan the QR code or click on the link, again, these slides will be available after this presentation. It'll take you to a survey link, and then we will be happy to dispatch our discrete reagents out to your lab as soon as possible. All right. So for anyone that is going to be in the area of PitCon this year, we will also be at PitCon with these discrete analyzer reagents. So you are more than welcome to stop by the booth. As you can see on the left-hand side of the slide, both Michael and Liv will be present. So if you want to meet the stars of our weapons of mass production ad campaign, they will be there. They'll be happy to meet with you guys and talk. We're also going to be giving some presentations during the show as well. So on Tuesday of the show, March 21st, I will be there talking again about the pre-made reagents for discrete analyzers, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. And then the following day on Wednesday, March 22nd, we're also launching another product line this year of what we call primary certified reference materials. So elements that do not have good traceability to the SI. We are developing that traceability ourselves. So Madeline Ghazi, one of our R&D chemists, will be there giving a presentation on that. And it's very, very interesting techniques about how to create SI traceable osmium and iridium standards and soon ruthenium standards. All right, so if you guys have any questions, we'd be more than happy to take them now. And if you are viewing this as a recording, please feel free to send questions to info@inorganicventures.com or visit our technical forum at the link provided there.
Okay, Mike, we have a couple of questions and we'll go through them as they came in. So Gary asked us to please mention that the IV reagents is pre-filtered and the info provided in the tips on filtering through a GFC is only applicable for making those in-house. Would you like to comment on that?
That is very true. So yes, our chloride reagent is pre-filtered. So that means that you really don't have to worry about the work on your end. That's another thing, another benefit of these reagents themselves is that you essentially get them in your lab, you open up the bottle, and they are good to go.
Great. We have one other question, and it was about our stability, the 6 month, and the question boils down to when does it start running? When does that when did that start running, and what might be some of the issues with that?
Yeah. Sure. So the stability starts running from the point of manufacture. So as they're manufactured, they will not be released for sale until we've at least demonstrated 6 months of stability on that product. However, if you have, we are updating that expiration period as our stability program progresses. So if you purchase a bottle and you're up against the expiration date of that product, please feel free to reach out, because I would almost guarantee that we'll have a revised certificate of analysis available for you that will demonstrate that you're getting at least another 3 months out of that bottle. So we wanted to get these out and on the market in folks' hands quickly. So we are updating the stability, the expiration dates as we sort of progress in the stability study. We have had to, it's a little bit of an interesting story I'll give a little bit of background on. We have some other data that shows that these reagents are good for much longer than 6 months. But we really want to make sure that we're doing things right. And we had to wait on actually receiving a discrete analyzer instrument in-house to do the testing for us, to really make sure that we're crossing all of our T's and dotting our I's on the stability program. So we have confidence that these will be good for longer than 6 months, but we want to make sure that we're waiting until we actually have the hard data to back that up before we extend the expiration date on the certificates of analysis.
Superb. Mike, there's one other question. My screen seems to be frozen. I don't know if you can, oh, it looks like that was the question that was answered. So our back office people were taking care of those. So
perfect.
We don't have any other questions. Is there any other commentary that you might want to make, Mike, or any other questions that you may have seen come up in the past?
It looks like we have one other question that just came up about the stability. So they asked, what is the stability after opening the container? The stability is sort of locked into when they were made, so that they'll have an expiration date printed on the C of A that you want to review, and that's what will be the expiration date of the lot itself.
So yeah, maybe that question is diving to how long the life is and the stability is. So there is a difference there, isn't there, Mike?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a difference from sort of our regular CRM products. If you're familiar with those, we give 1 year out of the bag for our CRM products. The stability concern for these products is really chemical stability, whereas for our CRM products, we're really more concerned about stability due to transpiration or loss of water, because our tolerances for our certified reference materials are so tight. With the reagents themselves, we're really worried about chemical stability.
Perfect. And I think another question popped up in there, Mike. Do you see that? Yeah,
sure. So it looks like from Amelia, she has a question: has the turbidimeter reagent been stable for up to 6 months when done in the lab? Will only last a week. So yes, we have. So for the sulfate method, we have really good data for 6 months. I think between now and PitCon, they should all hit their 9 months of data. we've tested multiple bottles and we've seen really good stability for these, but that is one that we have heard people have a lot of trouble with and have to remake a lot. I'm not sure what the issue might be. It might be an issue with gelatin. I know it took us a little while to find a good gelatin that would work out. So I'm not quite sure what the issue would be, but we have demonstrated 6 months for the sulfuric or sulfate reagent, the turbidity reagent.
You know, Mike, that's a great question. We really appreciate that question because that really underscores the buying of this product from a manufacturer who's making it up under a controlled environment and giving it some sort of guarantees on the stability and everything else. So I think that's something that we want to underscore, that when people buy this from us, they're getting a lot more than just time savings. They're getting something that's going to last them and they're going to be able to use and not have to worry about that in their labs.
That's exactly right. Another thing, another sort of big thing, I think that if you go the route of purchasing pre-made reagents, you have that documentation to back you up in case of an audit. You can say that, you know, hey, we bought this reagent and they say it is good for this period of time. And if you see any issues, you know, feel free to reach out to us and contact us. But we've done really some good stability studies on these products to show that they are good for the period of time that we put on the C of A.
Absolutely. Good. We have some more questions come in there, Mike.
Yeah.
Do you want to put some of these?
Sure. So Jason had another question. He said, for instance, ascorbic acid is notorious for going bad for phosphate analysis. We make it daily for that reason, but some say it's good for a week. Yeah, that was another one. Similar to the sulfate, we have really good stability study data on that ascorbic reagent. And again, that might be, you know, just making up under controlled circumstances with, you know, dedicated materials to make that up. But we have seen really good stability on the ascorbic acid for phosphate.
Again, another point that just you know, solidifies the benefit of buying something that's being made in a controlled atmosphere and from a manufacturer that will stand by what they make. Go ahead, Mike.
Yep. The next one we have is from an anonymous attendee. They said, how would I go about determining if these are the right standards or right reagents for my instrumentation? And that's actually an excellent question. It brings me to something I forgot to mention during the presentation, and that is our marketing team has put together really good chemistry sheets for each of these methods. So I think that they're going to post links or have links available to those. So if you're interested in one of these reagents, you can download a 1 to 2 page flyer that gives all the information on the chemistry of these reagents. And it gives more information about the methods. It looks like they just posted those links to the chat just now. So if you're interested, you can download those and really get a good idea if it's going to work for your instrument or not. And then you can always, you know, reach out to us and ask for a free 30 ml sample and give it a shot. But really, those chemistry flyers are your best bet. I think those turned out really well. So I really want to thank you know, our marketing folks, Maddie and Grace, for putting those together.
You know, Mike, that brings us to another point. That's one of the hallmarks of Inorganic Ventures, and that's that customer support, that technical support that we bring to the party, where we're able to talk not just about our products, but some of the issues like the person asking that question about their instrumentation. So never hesitate to reach out to us. Never hesitate to, if you have questions that might not be CRM specific, or in this case, reagent specific, never hesitate to reach out for us, because if we don't have the answer immediately, we probably have somebody in the building that does, and we'll gather that data for you. And it's our pleasure to give you that support. Looks like we have one more question in that queue.
Yep, exactly. So another anonymous attendee asked, how are they transported? Are they cooled during sending? That is an excellent question. So they are not cooled during sending. We have not found that to be necessary. But we are, if you sort of look at the C of A when you receive them, as of this moment, we are requesting that they be stored refrigerated for the chloride, sulfate, and phosphate methods. As we get good stability data over time for these, we will update those storage recommendations to sort of state if they can be held at room temperature or not. Again, we're sort of right in the middle of that process. So as for the moment, we have seen that it's not necessarily to send them, you know, transported in a cold environment, but when you receive them, please put them in the fridge. And they are stored in the fridge, on our facility before shipment.
Perfect. I think that's the end of the questions. If there's any more, we can hold on here to see if there's anything else that comes up. And if not, we can wrap this up and look forward to hearing from people about their needs on these.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you all very much for your time this morning. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us anytime. It looks like one person got a last question in here. Michael, do you want to handle, is UK pricing available?
The UK pricing is going to be handled through our distributor S-Lab in the UK. If you have questions about it and you filter those into them, that's great. If you filter those into IV, we'll make sure that they get that data for you. Thank you for that question.
Perfect. And again, thank you all for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at any time.
Thank you very much. And it's been good having everybody here. And we look forward to you joining us again at one of our future webinars that we'll be doing throughout the year.